Hello there, very good evening. This is the weekend edition of Primetime News on TV1. On behalf of the News First, the voice of the people, I am Martin Satyanesan. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for this evening.
Public Health Inspectors Union staged token strike citing 10 demands. Paramedics and supplementary medical professionals also joined in the strike. Cabinet decisions defying due process may lead to problems. A statement by the GMOA. Protests continue against the fertilizer shortage. Probe launched to arrest 5, including former JVP MP Samantha Vidyaratna and Namal Karunaratna, over Boralanda protests. 5 other arrested suspects released on bail.
Now those stories in detail. Public health inspectors staged a token strike centered around 10 demands today. Paramedics and supplementary medical professionals also abstained from their services today.
The 10 demands of public health inspectors include a hike in the risk allowances granted to them. All trade unions representing supplementary medical professionals withdrew from COVID-19 prevention efforts and the vaccination drive, seeking a solution to these demands. The strike was also aimed at calling for a solution on resolving issues in the health sector and the attention paid by officials towards certain areas.
9 trade unions representing supplementary medical professionals have joined this strike. This includes public health inspectors, medical personnel involved in conducting ECG and EEG tests at hospitals, eye specialists and even lab experts. Officers from all these sectors have joined the strike. This has stalled cardiac, brain and eye-related tests. We have completely withdrawn from all services relating to battling the COVID-19 pandemic. We hope that a solution will be provided to this tomorrow. Otherwise, we will resort to an indefinite strike action from Monday.
ඒ වගේම ශේෂ්ත්‍රයේ COVID-19 පාලනයට අදාළ සියලුම රාජකාරී අපි අත්හිටවලා තියෙනවා. අත්‍යවශ්‍ය කාරණාවකට යම් පුද්ගලයෙක් රෝගයක් සම්බන්ධව පැමිණිලි කරොත් ඔහු රෝහල්ගත කරවීම සඳහා අවශ්‍ය කටයුතු කරනවා හැර සාමාන්‍ය COVID-19 සියලුම රාජකාරී ඉවත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. එන්නත් කටයුතු සියල්ලම මේ වෙද්දී අත්හිටවලා තියෙනවා.
Vaccination camps in several parts of the country were affected as public health inspectors withdrew from their services. Residents of Ahaliagoda and Bopata were due to receive COVID-19 vaccines today, but the absence of public health inspectors thwarted the process. Nurses had participated in the vaccination drive following a discussion. Public health inspectors withdrew from their services at the vaccination camp held at the Children and Maternity Clinic in Kalutara North. This was the situation at public health offices across certain areas in Kurunagala. Meanwhile, paramedics and supplementary medical professionals abstained from their services today. Ravi Kumudesh, who heads the Joint Council of Profession Supplementary to Medicine, said that essential services will be in operation at hospitals despite the strike.
We feel that the Health Minister, Health Secretary and other officials in the health sector are in fear of speaking during meetings with the President. When the Ministry of Health continues to act in a childish manner, it will severely impact the decisions made by the President. The Prime Minister has allowed a meeting only with the Public Services United Nurses Union. This sets a precedent to only allow discussions with those associated with them. We have been informing about this matter to the President for the last 2 weeks.
මේ ක්‍රියාවලිය වෙන්නේ තමන්ට හිතවත්යයි කියා ගන්නා පුද්ගලයන් විතරක් සාකච්ඡාවට කැඳවා ගන්නා ක්‍රියාවලියක්. අපි ජනාධිපතිවරයාට මේ තත්ත්වය පිළිබඳව මීට සති දෙකක ඉඳලා වාර්තා කරනවා මේ.
The trade union action launched by 3 nurses unions was called off at 7 a.m. today. Venerable Muruttetwe Anandathera of the Public Service United Nurses Union said the decision was made after receiving a favourable solution during a meeting with the President. During the meeting, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa had agreed to meet the 5 main demands of the Public Service United Nurses Union. The demands include commencement of nursing universities, re-establishing the classification of staff grade officers that was introduced in 2017 under the Government of Good Governance, setting the service period required to be promoted from grade 3 to grade 2 at 5 years and from grade 2 to grade 1 at 7 years, and granting an annual uniform allowance of 20,000 rupees. The President had also agreed to bring it to the attention of the special committee to set the working duration at 30 hours for 5 days.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa allowed us to meet him for an official discussion at 6 p.m. yesterday. We tabled all 7 demands during the meeting. Upon listening to those requests, the President asked Minister Pavitra Vanyarachi as to why they can't be met. He considered our request and said that they can be granted to us. He highlighted the importance of the nursing service. We were promised that 5 requests would be met immediately, while 2 other requests will be addressed during the next year's budget. He approved all our requests. This is the circular. I saw that Navin Zoisa has issued a statement on behalf of the Government Medical Officers Association. He is saying that a Buddhist monk and a defeated parliamentarian is carrying out a struggle. I wish to tell Zoisa that we are aware of the campaign that they carried out through the media. Don't throw stones while being in a glass house. We wish to emphasize that the 2 proposals submitted by Minister Pavitra Vanyarachi during this Monday's cabinet meeting must be approved. If these cabinet papers are not approved, we will stage island-wide protests. We haven't made a decision to that effect yet. As the All Ceylon Nurses Union, we believe that the issues pertaining to the nursing sector will be addressed based on the assurance granted by the President. We will continue to keep a close watch on the steps taken by the government to address these matters. If they try to breach this consensus, then we will take steps to rally nurses against this.
Meanwhile, the Government Medical Officers Association highlights that several consequences may arise when decisions on nursing services are made in violation of the standard procedure. In a statement issued by the Government Medical Officers Association, Secretary of the GMOA Dr. Sinal Fernando said the demands of nurses had been put forward directly to the Cabinet without allowing the relevant officials to address the matter, resulting in a crisis in public services.
The trade union actions are led by a chief incumbent of a temple, while a former MP is leading another trade union action. How does one carry out a trade union action by inconveniencing the general public? We are aware that former religious leaders of our country have worked hard to protect the sovereignty of our country, and we are not denying that. Our concern is how the trade union action was chosen over medical treatment that should be provided to the patients. When trade union actions are launched, we make sure that emergency medical treatment is carried out. We saw how several emergency treatment units were not able to operate yesterday. Who is the trade union leader who approved this plan? On what basis is this group, including religious leaders and former MPs, operating, and why did they decide to halt emergency treatment? This is an extremely unethical strategy.
Protests staged by farmers across the country continued today as well. The continuous demand is for fertilizer.
Farmers of Daduroya in Chilau marched in protest from the Sippikalana Viharasthana to the Sippikalana Ayyanayaka temple. They broke coconuts and pleaded with the gods for a solution to the fertilizer shortage in the country.
කොම්පස් පොර දාලා කොහොමවත් හදන්න බෑ. දදුරුව දෙපැත්තේ ඉන්න දුප්පත් මිනිස්සු මේ මිනිස්සු ඔක්කොම ජීවත් වෙන පලා වලින්. මේ මිනිස්සු ගොඩක් දුප්පත් අන්ත අසරණ පවුල්. අපි ඉල්ලන්නේ පොර දෙන්න කියලා. අපි යාන වාහන ඉල්ලන්නේ නැහැ. ෆන්මස් ඉල්ලන්නේ නැහැ. KDH ඉල්ලන්නේ නැහැ. සුපිරි පන්සලක් ඉල්ලන්නේ නැහැ. අයි මේ මිනිස්සු බඩගින්නේ දාන්නේ. අයි මේ මිනිස්සුන්ට මහපරත් කරන්නේ. කරුණාකර මේ මිනිස්සුන් ගිල්ලි මිෂ්ට කරන්න. ඉන්නදාරි අයිලා ඕන කෙනෙක් ඇවිල්ලා බලන්න. ඒ ගොයියන්ට ගොයලා තියෙන අසාධාරණය. ඒකයි මේ අද මේ කෑ ගහන්නේ. අයිනාක හාමුදුරුවනේ මේ වගේ දූෂිතයන් දුරු කරලා දීලා හක්කලා අපිට මේ ගොයියන්ට යහපතක් උදා කරලා දෙන්න දූෂිතයෝ
Potato farmers in Hangunnava over Paranagama staged a demonstration today demanding for fertilizer.
The Polonnaruwa District United Agrarian Farmers Federation convened a media briefing today.
On the 1st of July, I was allowed to participate in a discussion with the President. The meeting was held at the Agriculture Ministry. Certain associations representing small-scale farmers were also present. There are 3 types of farmers' associations in the country. They are Mahaveli, irrigation and small-scale farmers. We belong to the group of irrigation farmers. There are 500,000 hectares of arable land on which paddy is being cultivated in Sri Lanka. 250,000 hectares are used by farmers like us. But decisions are made with associations representing small-scale farmers. This meeting is a clear indication of that. Farmers are accusing agrarian officers for their current situation. You might have seen me holding a paper during the meeting with the President. That document contains a segment of the shortcomings in some concepts regarding organic fertilizer. Before the meeting, Minister of Agriculture Mahindananda Alutgamage had met with the heads of the farmers' associations and informed them that certain matters should be promoted and discussed during the meeting. He had asked them to speak about the matters which he had briefed them on. The discussion with the President then began afterwards. But no one could express their views freely.
Dr. Hemakumara Nanayakara, an expert in the field of agriculture, expressed these remarks on the fertilizer shortage in the country.
It will take at least 2 years to reap the harvest after transitioning to organic farming from the usage of chemical fertilizer. If this transformation is done abruptly, the harvest could drop to 40 to 50%. There is no argument about that. The President may not have an understanding about the dangerous decision he made. Otherwise, he may have been misled by a group of fools who do not have any experience in agriculture. This could also be a small part of a bigger plan to direct our country into poverty. If farmers are deprived of an income, they will abandon their fields. When that happens, international companies will acquire those lands. The government is making decisions without a direction. A specialist committee conducted a survey regarding this matter. When the harvest reduced by 40 to 50%, the importation of vegetables, fruits and crops will cost $2.2 billion annually. The government is facing a shortage of foreign currency reserves. How can we repay our loans if we import them? The loans will have to be repaid by selling our lands. I believe that the government is on the verge of destroying agriculture and transferring our lands to foreign companies under the guise of protecting organic agriculture.
The police have launched a probe to arrest 5 suspects, including former JVP parliamentarian Samantha Vidyaratna and national organizer of the All Ceylon Farmers Federation, Namal Karunaratne. The arrests are to be made for staging a protest in Borolanda Bandaravilla in violation of quarantine regulations.
Police arrested 5 people for protesting in Borolanda Bandaravilla while violating quarantine regulations. The police said the suspects were produced before the Valimada court and were enlarged on a personal bail of 100,000 rupees each. The police had also made a request to arrest several more suspects, and the court had noted that an order was not necessary to arrest them. Accordingly, police launched an investigation to arrest 5 more suspects, including former JVP parliamentarian Samantha Vidyaratna and national organizer of the All Ceylon Farmers Federation, Namal Karunaratne. The protest had taken place on the 1st of July this year.
Protests organised by the Samagi Jana Balavegaya against the rise in fuel prices, the cost of living and the fertilizer shortage were staged across the island today. This protest was staged at the Galnava town this evening.
Without informing farmers on how the organic fertilizer is to be prepared, They have placed this burden on the farmers. What are they trying to do here? They are trying to speak of importing 100,000 metric tons of rice into the country. What are they trying to do here? They are trying to move the farmers out of their farmlands, make these lands barren, and then sell these lands to multinational companies like Adani. We suspect if this is a plan to make farmers who used to cultivate on their own lands tenants of these very same lands. We suspect as to if this is being done for commissions.
A protest was staged in Ratnapura today where farmers continued to demand for fertilizer. This protest was organised by the Samagi Janabala Vekaya.
The elder brother is speaking with his younger brother, and now since both of them can't do anything, they have given it to another one of their brothers. We know that this other brother will ruin what's left as well. Hundreds of thousands of farmers in the Ratnapura district are helpless. Tea cultivators are helpless. Farmers don't have fertilizer. The Sinhala and Tamil New Year was celebrated, but there were no sweet meats on the tables at houses. Coconut oil is sold at 900 rupees. This government must step down. No one can do anything now.
A protest was staged opposite the Kalamatiya Fisheries Harbour against the recent fuel price hike. The protest was organised by the All Ceylon General Fisheries Federation.
Much is spoken about the massive sea of Sri Lanka that is 8 times our landmass. The industries, fishing and agriculture sectors are the main contributing factors of the country's economy. They are destroying the prospects of a healthy economy by acting in a way which affects the fishing industry. We urge the government to reduce fuel prices and provide concessions to the fishermen.
Putting an end to the endless suffering of the residents of Mahavilachya. To quench their thirst, the foundation stone was laid for a water purification project.
මේ ගම්මැද්ද වැඩසටහන මේ මිනිස්සුන්ගේ ඒ ජන දුක ඔවුන් දැකලා අද දවසේදී එහි අග්‍රඵලය අපිට ලැබිලා තිබෙනවා.
Gammadda, for the people, by the people, with the people.
Bellboy's got you covered. Download Bellboy today to get all your household appliance fixing and repairs done. Now available on Android and iOS.
Parliamentarians expressed diverse views on allowing the WM Mendes company to resume operations on producing liquor. WM Mendes Limited is owned by Arjuna Aloysius of the Perpetual Group.
Who is the owner of this Mendes company? It is Arjuna Aloysius, who was remanded over his involvement in the bond scam. What connection does it portray? The government has been unable to provide fertilizer to farmers who have been asking for it repeatedly. Before coming to power, they pledged to provide fertilizer free of charge. Therefore, the government has failed in resolving the people's problem. But they have always stepped in to help their henchmen when required. The government has now allowed the Mendes company to resume operations. Therefore, it is clear that this is a bunch of friends.
I will oppose this if it involves the Mendes company or any other entity. I wish to pledge my fullest support towards wiping out the usage of alcohol, even if I have to sacrifice my parliamentary seat for it. I oppose that. I wish to remain clear on this. I have a backbone to say that. That is why the people have elected me.
Arjuna Aloysius is a chief suspect in the central bank treasury bond scam. Certain businesses that were accused of purchasing these bonds had been suspended. The Mendes company is facing accusations of avoiding tax payments as well. The allegation was levelled against Arjun Aloysius. The operations of the Mendis company were suspended based on these accusations. Therefore, we wish to ask the government whether all these accusations aren't valid anymore.
The question is, who is the individual who influenced this decision? When such a situation arises, it will spark outrage among the general public. Can a government which promised to punish the perpetrators of the central bank bond scam uplift such individuals? We should be focused on the individual who influenced this move. The problem is not with issuing a liquor license, but instead the action that has been taken against them. The question that we all have is about the deal between these individuals.
හැකියාවක් තියෙනවද කියලා නැවත උන්ට ආපහු ශක්තිය දෙන්න මට තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ කවුරු එක්ක ඩීල් එක යනවද කියලා
මේ ගනුදෙනු ඇතුලේ
We are suspicious as to whether there is a political deal involving lawmakers who entered parliament recently and those who are about to enter parliament. We know the pace in which the Department of Inland Revenue would act if an ordinary businessman defaults his tax repayments. We wish to ask those in the government as to why the inland revenue laws were not applied on these individuals. What sort of deal is this? Who is behind this deal? We wish to ask the President as to what has happened to his one country, one law policy.
අපිට ජනාධිපතිතුමාගෙන් අහන්න වෙනවා ඔබතුමාගේ අර එක නීතියේ සංකල්පය දැන් කොහො කියලා.
මෙන්ඩිස් සමාගමට මේ මත්පැන් මේ අලෙවි සඳහා අවසර ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා. මම දන්නේ නැහැ ඒක මොකද මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශයේ කාර්යයන් වෙළඳ අමාත්‍යාංශයෙන් අරක්කු වලට බලපත්‍ර දෙන්නේ නැහැ.
මහා බැංකුව සම්බන්ධ වෙච්ච
They said that those involved in the central bank bond scam would be sentenced to death. That government is now providing a tax concession of 1.5 billion rupees to the particular organization involved in the scam, which is WM Mendis & Co. Limited. If a tax was charged instead of granting a tax concession, the government will be able to purchase COVID-19 vaccines for 600,000 people. It could have been used to provide 1 million mobile phones or 200,000 laptops to students receiving online education. Isn't the president of this country aware of this heinous crime?
සාහසික අපරාධයට එරෙහිව මේ රටේ ජනාධිපතිවරට ඇහෙන්නේ නැද්ද මේවා?
Meanwhile, State Minister Lasantha Alegeyawanna says that sugar is not being sold under the ceiling price in the market.
Our country possesses a surplus stock of sugar, but importers sell sugar at unreasonable prices to the retail market. Sugar is not being sold under the current ceiling price in the market. The government is already acted against this. Despite judicial action taken in this regard, arrangements have only been made to pass the act during the next month, owing to the limitations in the laws.
මාසයක් ඇතුළත පාරිභෝගික අධිකාරිය පනත සංශෝධනය කිරීමට කටයුතු කරලා තිබෙනවා.
Do you remember the sugar scam? On the 14th of October, the tax on a kilo of sugar was reduced from 50 rupees to just 25 cents. During the period in which this tax reduction was in effect, until the 20th of February, the Pyramid Wilmar Company alone imported over 125,000 metric tons of sugar. 67 companies had imported sugar during this time period. However, the stock imported by the Pyramid Wilmar Company accounted for approximately 40% of the total sugar imports to the country. The Pyramid Wilmar Company that imported sugar into the country, subject to a tax of just 25 cents, had subsequently sold over 2,000 metric tons of sugar to Sathosa at a price of between 125 and 127 rupees. Sathosa had sold this sugar to the public at only 85 rupees. Has this transaction not burdened the public with losses twice? The loss in tax revenue alone as a result of this transaction was well over 15 billion rupees. Those responsible are still at large.
State enterprises have faced more than 82.78 billion rupees in losses this year. A Finance Ministry report has revealed details in this regard.
The Finance Ministry report has highlighted the performance of 52 state enterprises. Among them, 19 enterprises had incurred a total of more than 82.78 billion rupees in losses between January and April. This is slightly higher than the losses of 82.7 billion rupees faced among the selected enterprises during the same period last year. But Sri Lanka has 527 state enterprises. This would mean that the losses are likely to be much higher. The key loss-making institutions are the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, Sri Lankan Airlines, Ceylon Electricity Board and the Sri Lanka Transport Board. The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation has generated losses of 45.3 billion rupees so far this year. This is a massive downfall as the CPC generated 2.3 billion rupees in profits last year. The report shows that the Ceylon Electricity Board, West Coast Power Private Limited and Sri Lankan Airlines owes the CPC 19.7 billion rupees. Sri Lankan Airlines. Sri Lankan Airlines has incurred losses of 24.8 billion rupees in the first 4 months this year. Its total losses are now at more than 372 billion rupees. The Treasury has issued guarantees worth 52.3 billion rupees to the national air carrier. This would mean that the government will pay debts worth this amount if Sri Lankan Airlines fails. The Ceylon Electricity Board. The Ceylon Electricity Board has incurred losses of 7.5 billion rupees so far this year. It owes 126.8 billion to the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and independent power producers. Sri Lanka Transport Board. The Sri Lanka Transport Board has incurred a loss of 1 billion rupees in the first 4 months of this year. This is an increase compared to 223 million rupees of losses incurred during the same period last year. Mahinda Rajapaksa is the Minister of Finance. All of his children are also at the Ministry of Finance. In addition, Gotabaya Rajapaksa is the President. P.B. Jayasundara, the former Secretary to the Ministry of Finance, is now the Secretary to the President. His student Artigala is at the Finance Ministry. These are the plans that Basil Rajapaksa, who created separate ministries to develop the economy of this country, had presented at the time. This report of the Finance Ministry shows as to how that prosperity they spoke of has now become a curse. In many countries, expenditure of institutions had dropped with the COVID-19 pandemic. Instead, what has happened here? For the first 3 months, 19 institutions had suffered a loss of 82.7 billion rupees. The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation is one of the biggest loss-making institutions in the country. The people are wondering as to why the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation is making losses if the people of this country are paying for fuel. The people have to suffer the consequences of these losses. The Rajapaksas who governed the country for the past 2 years have not done anything to stop these things from happening. Instead, what are they doing? They are causing losses to the treasury from one side, and on the other side they are distributing the money that should have been received by the treasury among their friends. We clearly said that Arjuna Aloysius's Mendis company had to pay 1.5 billion rupees in taxes to the excise department. With the fines for failing to make the payments, he has to pay about 2.7 billion. When the treasury does not receive the money that is due, they start printing money. That is one factor for the increase in the cost of living. The next plan of the government is to claim that these institutions cannot be maintained and they must be sold off through companies like Selendiva.
Meanwhile, former Minister Lakshmanyapa Abeyewardena says that Basil Rajapaksa should return to the parliament in order to resolve the current economic crisis in the country.
We must accept the fact that our economy has collapsed. Our country is a state where the government is unable to serve the citizens of Sri Lanka. This government was developed using 3 main contributing factors. Mahinda Rajapaksa, an extraordinary figure who immensely contributed towards protecting the citizens of Sri Lanka, the people's faith in President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Basil Rajapaksa's managerial skills. This country is now in a state where it cannot be operated without one of these main factors. Several others are also in the mindset that the country cannot operate without Basil Rajapaksa returning to parliament. It is highly likely that he will take oaths as a member of the parliament before he is appointed as a minister. Those who oppose his return to parliament have also agreed that he is required in parliament.
එතුමාවයි කියලා විශාල වෙනම මේ එතුමා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ඇවිල්ලා ඇමතිකමක් ගත්තයි කියලා හෝ සුරබි දෙන පහළ වෙන්නේ නැහැ පහුවදා උදේට.
The situation won't become favourable simply if Basil Rajapaksa returns to Parliament. The people must be aware of the economic crisis in the country at present. There is a shortage of foreign currency reserves in the country. The people must question themselves on how they can contribute to solve this crisis. All of us are experiencing this. The crisis and the solution must be explained. Basil Rajapaksa created some ministries and appointed people to it as well. It was Basil Rajapaksa and PB Jayasundara who created state ministerial posts. They made appointments to it as well. The designations created by Basil Rajapaksa and PB Jayasundara, including the one I am appointed to as the State Minister of Batik and Handloom, is a joke. These designations are hilarious. They are underutilizing us by keeping us aside. This predicament must be understood by every faction. This is a cabinet appointed by Basil Rajapaksa and PB Jayasundara. Honestly, this is not the President's cabinet. The President has the required skill and strength. So does Mahinda Rajapaksa. We are ready to work with him. We can work together. The agreements that we signed were tossed aside. Our Pradesh Sabha members are treated poorly. It has come to a state where electoral organisers have been ignored. We are dissatisfied with the state of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. What we want is to move forward with everyone, including Mahinda Rajapaksa.
මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමාලා අපි ඔක්කොම එකට එකතු වෙලා මේ ගමන ඉස්සරහට අරගෙන යනවා.
Finance Secretary S.R. Artigala says that no decision has been made on restricting the import of luxury items. Media reports showed that the government is considering moves to restrict imports of mobile phones, televisions, freezers, electrical appliances and perfumes. These reports suggest that the move is expected to strengthen foreign reserve before being relaxed when the situation improves gradually. The Finance Secretary noted that a decision will be taken following discussions with the ministerial cabinet. Shifting our attention to international news, military aircraft is to be dispatched to evacuate towns and fight more than 130 wildfires in Western Canada. At least 233 people have died due to the wildfires that have been fueled by a record smash. From that, we bring to a close this edition of Primetime News on TV1. For details of these stories and much more, simply log on to our website www.newsfirst.lk. For the News First, the voice of the people, I am Martin Sakti Nisan, along with sign language interpreter Taraka Gabriel. You take care and good night.